welcome to the CBC Connection for today. Just want to share a quick devotional thought with you today, something I've been challenged with over the past week or so. I don't know, maybe you're familiar with the term comfort zone. Comfort zone simply refers to something that's within our area of comfort. So the things that are closest to us, we are the most comfortable with in the idea of a comfort zone. And so there's this line out around us that becomes the outside of our zone, the outside of things that we are comfortable with. And so outside of that zone becomes things that are uncomfortable. You know, one of the things that we could use to kind of picture that would be a balloon. Okay, if you think of yourself as the inside, you're inside the balloon. The balloon itself, the outside of the balloon, is your comfort zone. And you can stay inside the comfort zone and ultimately have very little impact on the world around you because of the fact that this zone that you have prevents you from really making an impact, making any sort of lasting change, and having really any sort of meaningful conversation with those outside of your zone. The only way that this zone gets bigger is if you pop it. And so you have to deal with that level of discomfort. Another example we could use, another illustration here, would be bubbles. All right, we have many bubble tools in our house, and so this is one of them. This is the biggest one, I think. You can think of this as your comfort zone, right? And so I'll show you here. As you know, bubbles are pretty straightforward. You know, they try to get some. So come back. Oh, it popped. Sorry. So they pop, right? They pop even easier than a balloon would. I think this becomes a good illustration for us in that sense that sometimes our comfort is very sort of, fragile, the things that we are comfortable with. And so we need to understand this idea of our comfort zone. Because that's one thing that I've been challenged with recently. My comfort zone feels a lot more like a bubble, a lot more fragile than the balloon. And so when we look at this idea in Scripture, we see very clearly in Scripture that our comfort comes and is in relationship with God. Our comfort does not come from the world. It does not come from the circumstances. It does not come from even other people long term in that sense. Our comfort comes and ought to come in our relationship with God. And the only reason we can have that comfort there that God can provide for us is because we have peace in our relationship with Him. There's no longer a wrath that needs to be satisfied, as Romans talks about. Jesus Christ did that for us. And that's an awesome and encouraging thing. Christ lived and died on the cross and rose again. And through our faith and trust in Him, we can have peace in our relationship with God. And that provides comfort. And so the question that I've been challenged with over the past week is, where do I go to find comfort? Where do I go to find peace? Where do I go to find my contentment? Is my contentment and my peace and my comfort in the world, in the situations and the objects and the circumstances of the world, or am I finding and running to God for that comfort, for that peace? And the Psalms talks a lot about both this idea of comfort as well as this idea of refuge. And I think refuge becomes a really good idea for us along the lines of comfort, because God for us is a place that we can go to be safe. He allows us to be safe because of our eternal perspective that we have in our relationship with God, but also because that changes the way that we live our lives every day. That changes the way that we view our comfort zone. When you think about Scripture, the people in Scripture that God uses, they don't really have a comfort zone. They don't really say no to things that you would think you'd become uncomfortable with. And so I think that this idea that we talked about here with our balloon and our bubble, those are things that, yeah, it's a great analogy for us and it's a great picture, but I think God is constantly in the business of popping that comfort zone, unless our comfort and our peace is found in Him. He wants to push us to that relationship. And so one of the things that just briefly that I thought about is this quarantine. We can, depending on how you've thought through it and how you're doing your quarantine, you can think of your house as a comfort zone. You can think of that house as I'm controlling what comes into my home. I'm controlling the circumstances and the situations that I'm putting myself in. And so therefore, my home can be my comfort zone. And I would say we need to deal with that because, again, leaving your home eventually when we get there, there are opportunities. And it doesn't matter how long you're outside of your home or even in your home. You can't stay completely in that comfort zone and still be effective for the cause of Jesus Christ. And so I would challenge you, as I've been challenged, to consider, where are you finding that peace and comfort? Is it in the relationships, in the people, in the objects of this world? Or are you finding the peace and comfort in your relationship with God? Spend time today, spend time this week running to God, running to Scripture, to His Word, running to Him in prayer. And you certainly can find comfort to a certain extent in relationships with people, but our long-term and lasting comfort can only come from our relationship with Jesus Christ, or with God that we have through Jesus Christ. So I would just encourage you to consider that this week, because I know it's been a challenge for me over the recent days. Thanks for listening, and I hope you have a great day. Bye.